Mike Nieheiser, founder of Beacon Rock for Mining Clips. With me is Clynton Nauman, President and CEO of Alexco Resource Corporation. That's AXR on the Toronto and AXU on the New York Stock Exchange markets. Clint, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Glad to see you come by, and willing to talk to you about Alexco.
Well, tell me about Keno Hill. Just give me a quick brush of the district.
Yeah, well, as you know, Keno Hill is one of the highest grade silver production districts in the world. It was in production from 1913 through 1988. In that time, they produced more than 200 million ounces of silver at a grade of better than 40 ounces per ton. And Alexco acquired this asset in 2006 from the government of Canada and has subsequently built a significant resource on the property, more than 60 million ounces now, have put one mine into production and produced 5.5 million ounces through the middle of 2013, and have two other mines that are developed and, in a sense, ready to go. And while all of that was going on, we have a new discovery, a new, much larger discovery in the district, centrally located in the district, a place called Flame of Moth. So at Keno Hill, as I mentioned, we were in production for 2.5 years. Gross profit in that time was more than $48 million. But when it rolled around to the middle of 2013, with the decline in the price and the relatively high underlying fixed costs and our third-party obligations, we found that our margins were getting thinner. And with the discovery of a new deposit, we thought that it was time to take a serious look at restructuring the company. And so we have temporarily suspended operations while we go through this restructuring effort. The restructuring effort is both on the cost side in terms of the underlying fixed costs, things like labor costs, various contract miners, transportation costs, those types of things, and also addressing our third-party obligations, which in a higher silver pricing market are quite tolerable, in a lower market become much more onerous.
Well, it's interesting that when you did temporarily suspend operations, that after 2.5 years you were actually operating at the highest levels with the best recoveries. That must be bittersweet.
It is, and there's no doubt that when we go back into production at Keno Hill, we need to be able to produce 400 tons per day, sustainable, year over year. In the past, we produced about 250 tons per day, and although that in the higher silver price environment is quite reasonable and acceptable, for a long-term, sustainable, non-swing type producer, we need to be at 400 tons a day. And certainly this new discovery we have at Flame of Moth, more than 1 million, 1.3, 1.4 million tons of more than 500, 600 grams per ton silver, is a major discovery. It's close to our existing infrastructure, can be put in production relatively easily, has to be permitted, bottom up, but it is really the future of Keno Hill. And so I think all the pieces are coming together, and assuming that we can achieve all of the objectives we laid out for ourselves over the winter, I'm hoping that we can look towards further development at Keno Hill in 2014.
Well, it's a good idea that you're not just trading dollars for dollars in this rate environment, but when you open back up again, you're going to be a completely different mill with Flame and Moth, the existing Belkeno mine, and then also Lucky Queen. Yeah, that's true, and we've actually looked at this on a preliminary economic assessment type of a basis, and that assessment would indicate to us that the great load in this district will be carried by the Flame of Moth deposit, and that'll be in production through at least 2021. It'll produce on average 370 tons per day, and the ancillary or make-up production for the 400 tons a day will come initially from the Belkeno mine, and then more laterally from the Lucky Queen mine, which is itself 125,000 tons at 1,200 grams per ton silver, so very high grade. Well, outside of the resources that you've already defined, the prior operator, United Keno Hills, never really explored below 200 meters for the most part. It's a large district with the 35 previous operating mines. What are your feelings about exploration along trend with the Flame and Moth?
Well, the interesting thing about Flame of Moth is that it's a blind discovery. It's in a part of the district that was never a major focus in the past. And interestingly enough, in this particular district, 35, 40 historical mines, those mines tend to occur in kind of clusters. And Flame of Moth is already the third largest deposit that's been discovered in the district. And I'm very confident that there'll be other discoveries in and around Flame and Moth that'll make up a cluster of ore deposits as we see elsewhere in the district. So I think the exploration upside is very good. And to that end, regardless of anything else going on with the company, we'll be starting exploration again at Keno Hill in March of this year, so another month or two.
Now, not only are you guys explorationists but successful miners, but you also have an environmental business that allowed you to come in and take ownership of this project. Could you talk about what that is at Keno Hill and elsewhere as far as opportunities for Alexco?
Yeah, Roger. When we bought Keno Hill, we bought it from the federal government of Canada. We're indemnified for all the legacy liabilities, but we also are charged with the responsibility of cleaning up the district on behalf of the government of Canada. At the present time, we in Canada have put more than $20 million into that effort. We've reduced the heavy minerals, metals in the creeks by more than 90%. It's been a very successful program, saved the taxpayers money, but on the back of that we've also grown an entire environmental business in terms of dealing with groundwater and contaminated areas around mine sites in Canada, United States, and some in South America.
Well, I just think that you're doing a great favor for the government of Canada and the Yukon, and I just really just glad you had a moment to talk with me. And just as a disclosure, I do own shares, and I have been compensated in the past to ride on Alexco, and I've been there probably a half dozen times. But Clint, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Mike.
Again, I'm Mike Nieheiser with Beacon Rock Research, and with me is Clynton Nauman, President and CEO of Alexco Resource Corporation. That's AXR on the TSX and AXU on the New York Stock Exchange markets. Thanks a lot, Clint.